Yeah, started.
Perfect. Thank you so much. So welcome everyone, and thank you for joining today's Livetrend SS26 Trendstorming session. I'm Julia, and together we'll explore today what we've decoded from the latest fashion weeks. So today, everything is about turning insights into action and really understanding how data can fuel creativity and how the fashion shows have been an incredible example for our technology to really present you the most tangible and reliable trends. But first, let me quickly introduce to you the team. So as you can see, Barbara, our CEO, who's usually a big part of our webinars, is not here today. She's in PI Apparel in London and broadcasting, as you could see in the chat, our Trendstorming there. So I'm really happy that she's joining, even though not in front of the camera, but at least she's here. But for the rest, behind Livetrend, of course, there's an incredible team of analysts and creatives that are working in collaboration. Together, we can really merge quantitative insight with qualitative storytelling to make sure that even today, in every picture, in every percentage that you can see, you have this reflection of both market reality, or this time fashion show reality, and human intelligence. So as I said, I'm Julia Stratma. I'm head of the trend team. We have with me Simona, who's a key player of Livetrend since the beginning. Maybe you want to say hi quickly.
Hi, hello everybody. Thanks so much for coming and attending the webinar.
Then we have Maria Julia. She's a new add-on to our fashion team. She's junior trend analyst, and she'll be supporting us today as well during the webinar.
Hi, everyone.
Yeah. Great. Then we also have Lucie in Paris, who's taking care of our chat. So if you have any question,
feel free to add your question in the chat. Thank you all for joining us today.
Perfect. And then lastly, we also have Ingrid on board, who's sharing the presentation and making sure that everything rolls smoothly. She's here today from Lyon. Maybe you want to say a quick hi as well to everyone who's joined. Ingrid? No?
I think she's
on mute. No worries, but you'll see her screen. That's enough. Let's maybe go now into the contents of today's presentation. Ingrid, yeah, perfect. So this is our journey for today. We start with a quick introduction on Livetrend. Then we look at the SS26 fashion show analysis, or the quantitative part of the analysis, with the assortments, the colors, materials, and prints. And then we're going to deep dive into the design trends and the relating must-haves afterwards. And we'll definitely close with a little information on how you can access even more, or how you can download the PDF. So don't worry about taking screenshots, etc. That'll come all at the end. But first, hello everyone again. So we are Livetrend. Livetrend is the first AI-powered trend and market analytics solution that's built specifically for the fashion industry. We help brands create, buy, and produce best-selling collections by turning massive amounts of data into clear and actionable product directions. So our goal is really simple here. We try and reduce overstock, strengthen sellout, and ensure that we stay on the same slide, Ingrid, and ensure that every creative choice is validated by real signals from the market. So therefore, we really continuously scan the global fashion landscape, and we have a different set of sources. So every week we analyze over 95,000 products on e-commerces. We track more than 3 million images across Instagram each month. And we also process data from over 14,000 runway looks. But at the same time, we also have the access to Google Trends, so we can follow consumer searches and interests. And this is very interesting because this broad scope and this variety of sources allows us to cross-reference data and to make sure that what we detect is not just what is trending now, but also why and where it's going to grow and be successful. On the next slide, you can see that Livetrend unites 4 key tools in one platform. So we have the trend feed that gives you curated inspiration, information, filtered personally for each client by the data relevance for the market or the relevance for the market in general. We've got the analytics, that is an interactive dashboard with personalized information on competitors and their assortments in real time. It gives you the possibility to see, okay, where is my brand position in comparison to the rest, spot, white spaces and product opportunities, and understand when is everyone else on sale, how can I adjust? So it's a very agile tool. We've got the retail search that kind of connects the both. And now as a new addition, we also have our AI co-pilot that is transforming our intelligence into kind of immediate creative support. So it kind of works as your digital partner. You can ask, for example, show me the growth of colored dresses, or which bag shape should I invest in for the next season? And then it delivers validated answers, visuals, references, etc., that all come from our trend feeds and dashboards. So you don't have to scan the numerous information that is even available on the Livetrend platform. So it's really like having a 24/7 trend strategist at your site. And now quickly about our technology. How does all of this actually work? So how do we detect the trends? At Livetrend, we've developed our own algorithms. As we said, it's a platform specifically built for the fashion industry. We've got these little spiders, our algorithms that are tracking visuals and text with a unique image and text recognition technology, and that help, and with the help of our exhaustive Livetrend fashion taxonomy, interpret them for the fashion industry. So like this, we can definitely detect a very specific set of product attributes and narrow them down to product information that, like material, shape, detail, cuts, all of this to, be as precise as possible about the specific items and to get as precise as possible picture of the industry. And this makes our methodology so accurate and so unique and helps us to really not miss anything. So as we can see on the next slide, today's Trendstorming is also based on this image recognition technology. Therefore, we've analyzed the images of more than 250 fashion shows across the 4 main capitals, so to say New York, London, Milan, and Paris. We're covering over 34,000 products here, and all of the trends at Livetrend are classified according to their trend behavior or maturity. So we always put a little stamp that indicates if the trend is an early signal with high risk, an announced trend with solid growth, or finally a very high magnitude trend that is a big or stable trend. And not to forget, we also propose or also mention the last call trends. And maybe that sounds a bit frightening at the beginning, but actually, these trends have a lot of potential. They have manifested already in the market across the last seasons where they've, slowly introduced and gained magnitude. And especially for the late adopters, they usually come with very little risk if you put them in a collection. So this really is a classification system that allows you to understand how to experiment and where to invest with confidence. So on the next slide, you can see that the benefits of this data approach are very clear. It's a very practical method. We cut unsold inventory, reduce markdown loss, and enable teams to make way more confident decisions and to save time on low-value tasks in order to focus on the real crucial things. The next slide gives this a bit of measurable data. So we cut forecast errors in half. We give creative teams a more than 25% time gain in order to focus on something important by automatizing research, etc. And for merchandisers, we increase their efficiency by 45%, especially with our real-time dashboards. As you can see, they don't need to be like scamming all the competitors' website for the benchmarking. And lastly, super quick on our pioneering AI expertise also in generative AI. On the next slide, you can see that with generative AI, we are able to take the detected top trends and visualize them as future bestsellers. So especially for these fashion show trends, it's really interesting how technology can make runway styles more tangible and bring them to reality. You will see later with Maria Julia, who is going to give you always a little runway to reality breakthrough with generative artificial intelligence. So you can see there how more edgy trends, etc., are translated for the real world. But let's move from methodology to reality and to what actually happened on the runways, first with Simona.
Thank you so much, Julia. So let's deep dive. First of all, in an overview of what happened city by city, which is something that we introduced this season because we found there were several aesthetics and DNA very related to the city, and also a bit of shift from the minimalism that we've seen for the latest season. So starting with New York, here the mood was all about modernity and simplicity. There was a sense of effortless sophistication that combined natural femininity and power. The city stayed true to its minimalist DNA. We know that New York has this vibe, but the theme was reinforced by tailoring, ease, quiet luxury, and they have been defining the latest few seasons, as I said before. And this time they evolved towards a softer and more sensual direction. And it was pushed by brands like Calvin Klein, Tory Burch, Altuzara, and Ralph Lauren, which perfectly captured this sleek but also feminine aesthetic. When we moved to London, here we see that creativity took a freer and more experimental route. The city here became a playground where tradition met eccentricity, poetry, and romanticism. And designers like Simon Rocha, Erdem, Yuan Wang, they offered a richer interpretations of historical narratives through contemporary lenses. We also felt that it was an important mention go to Burberry, because even if it stood up slightly apart of this romantic mood, it was more pragmatic, more grounded. It was still resonating big in London, and that also signals how the city is becoming again important in the fashion system after a period of silence. But moving to Milan, here the atmosphere shifted towards a more confident and energetic kind of luxury. We see that the season felt dynamic, sophisticated. It was marked by bold color choices and rich layering. We saw Prada, Bottega Veneta, and Fendi that stood out for their ability to balance strength and elegance. But we also saw like new creative directions, for example, at Versace, that offered notes of contemporary irony and energy. And finally, to close it with Paris, here the spotlight was on femininity. It was very bold, very sculptural and confident. And there was a clear couture spirit that returned to the runways, with Chanel, Dior, and Balenciaga that were all undergoing new creative shifts, and they were widely praised. And meanwhile, brands that kept the same direction as Chloé and Miu Miu, they still aligned these couture eccentric vibe, and Parisian mood was very modern, very feminine, and very confident. So each city we thought it spoke his own language and was contributing to a beautiful spring-summer 26 season. But let's deep dive into our data in the next slide. So here we have our top product categories from the latest fashion shows. You can see from our pie charts how we compare products assortment through the season. So we have summer 2025 and summer 2026. We see that here, once again, dresses remain the most represented category on the runway. We have more than 4,000 looks across the cities. And we also notice there is a slight decrease, but the category is still stable in top of the chart. But what's more interesting is the growth of the top category, which is signaling a new focus on coordinated outfit, as we can see, top and pants combination. And the shift reflects a broader evolution towards a versatile dressing, where the dress as a category, a product category, is more eccentric, is more party-oriented, and brings a sense of fun and self-expression, while we link these codes to city office and more about everyday functionality. And now I'll pass it to Julia, who will take us through these product dynamics connected to colors.
Thank you so much. So while we saw some shifts, as Simona explained, aesthetically from city to city, color was definitely like the strongest connector across all cities this season. We saw a renewed appetite for intensity, but that was controlled through sophistication. As you can see from the pie chart, neutrals like black and white still heavily dominated the season, but both of them show a slightly decreasing growth rate. However, in the black and white color combination, You can see that was featured in more than 400 looks. We still saw an increase of incredible 55%. Something that is really interesting and standing out again is the monochrome silhouette. So both for neutral palettes, but also for bolder shades, the monochrome has actually come off as a very strong contender this season. At the same time, bold hues have increased a little bit by 14%. However, a bit on this more sophisticated tone. We don't play so much with these super clashy color blocking combinations, but it's really more about contrasting a very bold color with something more subtle and toned down, even as you can see in the Zimmermann silhouette that we've put here, where we combine the bold fuchsia with a more tamed, an indulgent brown. And that's why maybe we still have this big array of neutrals. However, this season seemed super colorful. And I think it's within this contrast of having lots of neutral silhouettes or neutral to bold color combinations that these colors could really, catch the eye and stand out with, us having them in mind. Then we also have a lot of metallics. They've been growing by 63%, very solid, because of a lot of sparkling elements, a lot of fancy fabrics like a jacquard, like embellishments. So definitely something to keep in mind. Now moving to the next slide, we see the SS26 seasonal color palette. So here we've definitely depicted for you just the most relevant hues, whether that was in visibility or just due to their growth rate. It's a palette that really reflects confidence, positivity, and a need for more emotion after years of minimalism. It brings together broad and balanced mixes of refined neutrals, sophisticated midtones, and high-impact brights. To break it down, we have these soft urban neutrals on the left with taupe, greige, warm brown. Then we've got these new shades of lilac and mauve, and even the super strong purple that we saw at a lot of the big luxury houses. Then we got this blue family that is very, very crucial for the season, where we move from cornflower to saturated cobalt and a deep anchored navy. We've got greens that range from a more aquatic curacao shade to a very interesting resort green, still keeping a bit the focus on the limes. Then we also see sunlit yellows adding warmth and positivity, while orange and bright red inject vibrancy and power for yet another season. What is interesting, we look also at fuchsia and pink that stay solid and strong within the season and that are closing the circle of this palette with some dreaminess and femininity. Overall, it's very cohesive, very versatile color story that can reflect both a minimalist approach that you will see even later in the stories, but also a more expressive storytelling. Looking now quickly at the top 5 fashion colors on the next slide, you can see here we have not taken into consideration the neutral shades here by just visibility across the fashion show's looks. These are the top 5 shades that have stood out. So we've got red that is no longer aggressive, but this time definitely keeps a bit more of a sensual and confident allure, with even a 51% increase rate, despite the fact that it has already been very prominent in the previous seasons. We got resort greens with 15%. I think it's very interesting because it's a shade that works perfect for resort, active, and accessory to really stand out on a look. We've got the perfect pink, like all the pink shades that remain solid in more than 1,200 looks, but definitely show a little decrease with 13%. So here we're moving from Barbie to nuanced interpretations of the shade that feel a bit like grown-up femininity. We got yellow, really adding optimism and brightness to the season with 9% increase. And of course, the light blue that has already been super relevant previously now takes a bit more nostalgic cornflower, slightly lilac tint compared to previously. And it's really adding a bit of a classic, vintage and serene feel. So overall, the mindset for colors, you can see, is very joyful energy, anchored still in timeless shades. And now I'm giving back to Simona, who's going to take you through the season's materials.
Thank you so much, Julia. So on the next few slides, you will see our overview of the key materials and top materials. So here, where we have an overview, we think that what's interesting to notice from the silhouette selected here, as you can see, is how this season's materials express a new kind of maximalism, as I mentioned before, which is more eccentric, is structured, and very couture inspired, echoing what we mentioned earlier in the CD highlights. So even when materials appear simple, they use fields elevated and more sculptural and more expressive. And where we look at the top 5 materials in the next slide, at the top we see that leather dominated with over 3,000 looks, confirming its status as one of the strongest trends in terms of material. It brings a luxury and accent to minimalism. So it spices up even cleaner silhouette and keeps simplicity relevant while enriching the look. At the same time, according to this clean and minimal vibe, there are tailoring fabrics. Also, these are exceeding 2,000 looks, so very visible and very big as a trend, highlighting how structured dressing is remaining a pillar of contemporary style. But when we move to a more feminine sphere, we find fluid transparencies, which despite a slight decline remain a stable and expressive code. So with that surface also in applications marks one of the most notable increases, spreading across categories and adding a sparkling touch of eccentric femininity. And we finally see also how silk and satin close the list as a materials that channel the ladylike elegance, the soft and vintage femininity, and it's also playfully and frivolous as the two before. So we can see there's these antitheses between very clean and very structured materials, and these are more lavish, more feminine, and more frivolous. And now I will leave the word to Maria Giulia, which is introducing you to patterns.
All right, thank you, Simona. Let's now dig into our top 5 pattern defining the SS26 women's wear season. So into the next slide, you can see that florals remain a stable trend, even if they show a 90% decline overall, because the romantic spirit is still there, but it's being reinterpreted through new lenses. We are seeing the rise of mini bouquet and ditzy pattern as at Miu Miu, which bring a tender, nostalgic touch to this everyday femininity. Along that, the 80s inspired wallpaper florals are offering a fresher and more graphic twist. So while the dominance of florals is stabilizing, their versatility keeps them relevant, bridging romance with subtle reinvention. For stripes, we are moving away from past pinstripe hype, so we see a rise by 70%, confirming their position as a wardrobe classic that really never leaves but constantly reinvents. So for SS26, we are seeing more sporty and graphic interpretation, vibrant, layered, and even slightly imperfect combination that add the rhythms and movement to the silhouette. So checks record an impressive plus 37% with this kind of style, but on purpose turn. So designers are playing with proportion, mismatching plates, and distorting grids to create this crafted yet spontaneous effect that leads to a new take on heritage that feels youthful, smart, but even a bit rebellious. For geometric prints, they continue to straighten up by 26%, so reflecting this growing appetite for visual structure with pattern that feels both retro and futuristic, often play with optical illusion, repetition, and color blocking to sculpt the body. So on that geometric and optical note, we see polka dots, which are one of the big trends of the season, which up a remarkable 60%. So after dominating this summer's Instagram feed, they are back, but with a twist, because we are seeing a new spectrum of different interpretations. So from oversized high contrast version to delicate micro dots, as well as surprising colorful variation moving beyond the classic black and white. So moving on to the early sign, these are small but telling signals that are shaping what's next. So they might be still niche, but they are definitely worth keep an eye on. So starting with this maritime foulard, we are seeing the return of the scarf-inspired prints with a nautical twist. So think ropes, sails, and tiny marine symbols scattered over fluid silk. So it brings back that Riviera elegance, but with a relaxed tone. It's nostalgic yet easy and a modern kind of reinterpretation of the yacht club aesthetic. Then there is the decalcomanie, which feels particularly fresh because it actually can be seen as a new take on Animalier, because the wild texture is still there, as you can see, but this transformed into something more abstract and artistic. So prints are layered, smudged, or blurred, creating this sense of organic movement. So it's essential but subtle, and we can say that it's a little bit more about suggestion than statement. With Straps collage, we are being taken into the realm of optical play. So this combination of geometric patterns with traditional stripes creates this bold directional composition that it's all about rhythm and contrast. So lines are moving, intersecting, twisting, and wrapping around. So the results feel energizing and a bit hypnotic, but it adds visual dynamism to simple shapes. And finally, we have the retro Americana, which evolved into something richer and more attitude driven. So we are seeing the rise of vintage American biker mood with washed out graphic, worn leathers, and nostalgic themes. So this is about authenticity and freedom, and it's a raw counterpoint to all the polish elsewhere in the season. So now I give the floor back to Julia, who is going to introduce you to the key themes and must-have of the season.
Thank you so much. So let's start with a quick overview. So each season we kind of deconstruct all of what our data has spit out in terms of like must-haves, leading fabrics, material, etc., into these design stories that we've seen scattered across multiple designers and bring them into an interesting summary for you guys. So we have an overview of like 5 stories today. There is definitely way more that you will see later you can access on the Livetrend platform. So before losing a bit more time on this overview, we're already jumping into the first story that is called Dolce Minimalism. So across the runways from Alberta Ferretti to Ralph Lauren, Celine, Max Mara, and Calvin Klein, we saw this evolution of the minimalist world with some new fluidity and a certain feminine softness. The previous seasons were heavily inspired by menswear and corporate office wear when it came to minimalism, but here we definitely see this distinct feminine touch that feels Mediterranean, almost Riviera-like. So it's really depicting the codes of the recent quiet luxury movement, but focusing on the monochromes, pure material languages with a big focus on bright whites, deep blacks, and also on the discrete usage of stripes. But you can see that silhouettes are getting more subtle, are getting lighter with more volume, but still remain a bit of this pure and restrained undertone of the previous seasons. Here, tailoring seems to be unstructured, still remaining precise, but suggesting strength without rigidity. We see simple cuts, very few embellishments here. So it's really redefining minimalism by adding elegance to the modesty that we've seen previously. The mood really feels like a modern black and white photograph of an afternoon in the Amalfi Coast. So definitely super timeless and sensual. It's a new form of sophistication that's deeply rooted in effortless femininity and representing this universal desire for luxury that is based on both emotion and also this idea of, like minimal restraint basics that can be used or worn time and time again. And now Simona is going to give you the must-haves related to the look.
Thank you so much, Julia. Super interesting. So now, deep diving in the must-haves, as Julia mentioned, we can see how minimalism is evolving, and even from this silhouette, you can sense how it's becoming more sensual, occasionally more eccentric, and even more sculptural and nostalgic. We see, starting with the top, decline in bras and bralette, which are down by 44%, marking the shift over an overexposed aesthetic that we saw lately. But what makes this piece interesting here and within this team is the new interpretation, because the bralette, first of all, is layered and it's coming in cohort. So it can be coordinated with the blazer or matched with a coordinated bottom. So it's either the tailoring or the pants or the skirt, but it's a sign of a refined sensuality rather than provocation. At the same time, the impact trench remains a stable icon. It has a 12% of growth compared to last season. It's still oversized, it's still sharply tailored, and it continues to embody modern confidence and the effortless precision that's typical of this understated elegance. And finally, the bubble skirt, which is emerging as the surprise of the season, it's having an impressive plus 300% of rise. And its rounded volumes introduces a playful couture spirit into minimalism. And so the wardrobe, as I said before, is more sculptural, is bridging from simplicity and this new experimentation in a new and contemporary way. But let's move to see how the accessories are combining in this trend. So minimalism and ultra minimalism in the specific is translating into a new functional and refined aesthetic for accessories. So for the bags, we see that there is this shoulder neo bucket bag, which is growing up to 75% and is standing out as the symbol of our more relaxed luxury. It's supple, oversized, but is also quite elegant, and it combines everyday practicality with artisanal precision. It's perfectly aligned with the effortless sophistication that we mentioned before. And also, for shoes, we are still speaking of modernism. So we have the modernist flip-flops are increasing by more than 80%. And this piece captured the essence of contemporary comfort. Its clean lines and architectural silhouette make it genderless, but also essential and inherently chic. So it's a timeless piece for sure. And now I will leave you to Maria Giulia to conclude the trend with our AI generation.
So thank you, Simona. So as Julia said before, here we are proposing some direct translation of AI fashion concept into real world with the generative AI that really help us visualize the commercial point of these themes into the real life. So for the Dolce minimalism, we are talking about lightweight linens, soft tailoring, and a palette of whites and muted neutrals. So what's interesting here is how resort elements are translated into the everyday life. So think of a look which is perfect for a summery city day or for a coastal getaway that is still feel polished. So customer will buy a tailored wide leg trouser in linen or silk or a high quality tank top because these pieces are seasonless, so they can be mix and matchable, like they are infinitesimal mix and matchable, and they speak to this sophisticated, effortless style. So it drives sales mainly because of this elevated basics nature. So we can now jump into the next theme for the season.
Thank you so much. So the second design trend is athletic layers, and this is a trend that's all about motion and athletic energy. It translates this global fascination with sport and wellness that we've already seen the past seasons into something a bit more refined and fashion forward. So the data is showing that this trend has been growing by 111% when we compare it to the last season. This is especially due to the layering component. It's a trend that has been super prominent at the Italian fashion houses, but also at Loewe, where they played with a lot of interesting performance fabrics in couture volumes, Fendi, where we saw a lot of, knit and nylon shirts mix and matched, blending a bit the lines between gym and the office. And also at Lacoste, we reimagined, tennis through this fluid layering lens. So athletic layers is a trend that features a big accumulation of mini shorts, polo shirts, t-shirts, tank tops layered all together to create a fresh and youthful but authentic look. The pieces are definitely revisited basics, but they are accessible, casual, and full of personality. So they go beyond, basic as a badge of honor, but make it, unique. So after several seasons that have been marked by this quite luxury that we saw in the previous trend, this really brings a bit of a more optimistic energy, a more optimistic spirit, something that we've also anticipated in our SS26 forecasting. So we're happy to see it translating in the shows. It combines elements of, a sporty male wardrobe with these mini length pants to evoke a bit of the bloke core spirit and make it adaptable for women's fashion and fashion forward closets. And as we said before, so the silhouette very much focused on modular layering and dressing. It's definitely made for a generation of consumers that's living between work, wellness, and travel. It's not too sporty, not too casual, not too comfortable, but aspirational. So it's kind of the perfect in between, and having a clear message of movement is the new luxury and fashion being able to be the ecosystem to underline this dynamic life and not just propose outfits for this one occasion. And now maybe Simona can take us through all of the must-haves that are related to the trend.
Thank you so much, Julia. So let's see how this playful energy is translated into silhouettes. So we start with the boxy short sleeve top, which is growing by more than 30% yearly. And it perfectly captures this spirit because it's relaxed, it's easy, and it has this oversized cut that brings a touch of irony to minimal dressing. Also, the shape and the fact that it's very oval allows underlayer. And we saw that layering is very important for this trend, as you can see also in the title. And then we have the sporty shorty, which is up to 38%, which keeps evolving as a true statement piece. It takes inspiration from activewear, but translates into fashion, and it's short, bold, and it's also a little cheeky. And finally, we have the performer jacket, which is still an early sign, but we also saw during the previous summer season that there were windbreakers and rainproof jackets, which now have been reinterpreted with volume and pop color, and they're turning into a functional item, which is something also expressive and fun. And altogether, these pieces bring freshness and a sporty narrative, which is more about attitude and ease than pure performance. But let's see how accessories also translated this aesthetic in the next slide. So here the accessories keeps the same mix of preppiness and sporty energy, and there is a clean shapes and a touch of Ivy League polish, let's say. But we see that this boxy top handle bag, which is also growing a lot, it's more than 100%, and it's also a big trend because it has resonated already in the market. Add some sort of structure to the look. It's not specifically sporty, but it's preppy, it's bold, it's geometric, and it's also slightly retro. And it's the kind of bag that instantly elevates even the most casual outfits. Also, this slim sneaker, which is increasing by 59%, defines the new kind of sporty chic because even here, the look is slightly vintage inspired, but it's also softer and it has these muted tones. It's very slim, it's anatomical and makes it easy to pair across categories. So this weird matching or like layering and matching preppiness with sporty is key here. And of course, accessories are the key categories that allows this sort of layering and mixing and matching. So to conclude this overview on this playful mood, let's see what Maria Giulia has to show us about AI generations.
Yeah, thank you, Simona. So this trend is a solid driver for cord sets, basics to layer up, and for performance accessories like colorful socks or practical sunglasses, let's say. So it's about merging comfort and style, which is not it's a non-negotiable for the modern customer. So this direction works commercially because it blends perfectly performance and lifestyle, comfort and coolness. So we can imagine a look that works perfectly from morning errands to an off-duty lunch, or for the office on a casual Friday. So it's actually activewear reimagined for real life. So let's now continue with the next theme.
Yes, we try to hurry. Now we see that time is flying. So now we're entering the universe of ladybirds. That's perhaps one of the most expressive and emotionally charged moods of the season. So as we saw already with the fabrics and color trends, this is, these are some of the core elements that have been embedded in this story that is very joyful and confident, full of exuberance and colors and super unapologetic. This story came alive at a lot of designers across various cities like Stella McCartney, Giambattista Valli, Balenciaga, Pet Bull. And it's really about designers turning domestic charm and vintage glamour into something very bold and contemporary. The silhouettes are celebrating the female through new forms like browner volumes, waisted waistlines, and sculpted details. We see the return of the puffy sleeve, the bubble hem that we've seen before, the mermaid cut, and even these flamenco style asymmetric ruffles that make the trend oscillate between maximalism and ladylike elegance. So you can see there's this clear play between innocence and seduction, and even the smallest detail feels intentionally theatrical here. So the look isn't really shy, and it sees fashion as joy as a sort of resistance, so kind of the refusal to blend in. So it's the opposite of quiet luxury, like the first theme, for example, but it's celebrating a loud luxury. So meaning we celebrate boldness and personality, and we're really setting again on party wear, as we saw also with the incredible positioning of dresses this season. So maybe now, Simona, you can give us a quick dive into the must-haves.
Yes, thank you, Julia. Let's try to be more effective and quicker. So what's key here that we need to consider is, as we said several times, even before mentioning the trend, is that couture and maximalism and loud luxury are definitely back, even if they are still entering the season maybe more silently. But here we have a triumph of these elements, and we see that what's key is trying to maximize the shapes through details, materials, and new volumes. So we see the details in the skirts, where we have the ruffles that brings this new movement and this playful silhouette through the bottoms. Then we have in the frivolous mini dress, key are materials and embellishment. Of course, there is also, as you can see in the Valli, there is this bubble hem, but what are key also are feathers, embellishment, bedazzling, so maximalism through details, which can be textiles, but can even be embellishments. And then we have the puffiness that we see in the puffy sleeve blouse, which is these new volumes, which was very relevant in the season. And it's, of course, a bit vintage, but it's also a bit frivolous. So it gives us the opportunity to combine these two things and go back and forth in new experimentations and volumes. And we see that Ladybird is celebrating this moment through party-oriented and proudly frivolous elements, which are very, which are stating expressive elegance. So let's see how in accessories we can find the same vibe. We see this satchel pouch, which is up to more than 100%. It's becoming a strong accent that grounds the look. It's satin textured, it has gathered shapes and candy colors, and it's echoing the spirit of evening glamour. So it's either our grandma, but also like rich ladies for all the glorious days. And it's also something that we can even use during daily outfits. So it can be the complement to the party wear, but it can also be a sophisticated and a bit eccentric touch to our office outfit. And when we go to shoes, we see that there is this dainty peep toe. We saw that peep toe was already a key element in shoe to wear lately, and it's growing by 63%. And it's defining this new ladylike attitude. So the heel, it's not excessive, but it's sort of frivolous. Yes, this delicate strap, and it's playful with its sophisticated and curated details like bows or appliques, and it also preserve this vintage allure, which is also an undertone of this trend story. But sorry to be like mixing information, but we need to rush a bit, and I leave the word to Maria Giulia to conclude.
Thank you. So for Ladybirds, we saw that the mood is sparkling, playful, and proudly feminine. So in real life, this translates into occasion dressing. So a chic, bold party outfit, or even a statement top paired with some denim for an after-work cocktail. So we're seeing this trend filter down into feather-trimmed mini dresses for evening, but also sequined or embellished blouses and bustier. So it's powerful because it sells attitude as much as it sells style. So this speaks directly to the revived appetite for going out fashion and statement party wear. So we can now switch to the next theme.
So our fourth macro theme or design theme from the SS26 shows stays a bit in this theatrical mood. It's called Napoleon's Muse. It's a story that's all about authority, heritage, and artistic rebellion. It's interesting because this mood channels history through a modern female gaze, I would say. It's where power meets poetry, and the data we've depicted here is the one of romanticism, and it's definitely clashing with rebellion and the military trend that we've also seen emerge across the fashion show. Strong runway examples here have, for example, been Dior, Erdem, Johann Wang, and Meister, or Alexander McQueen. The silhouettes mix a lot of these officer jackets with ruffled details, etc. So you can see the waists are defined, so shoulders are structured, and the fabrics are rich. So a lot of leather, lace, jacquards, etc. that add a bit of this theatrical, historic undertone. So Napoleon's Muse definitely redefines power dressing for women. It's not mimicking masculinity, but transforming the symbols of history, I would say, or the symbols of authority into expressions of female individuality and a new take on romance. So it's rebellion with grace and a kind of intelligent drama. But what does that mean in terms of must-have pieces? Maybe you can just have a little brief breakdown here.
Thank you, Julia. So we can see here we have this officer jacket, which was up to 100%, but as you see, it's not super big in visibility. It's an early sign and marks the comeback of decorative tailoring and structured shoulder, ornamental button, and has a strong waistline that reintroduce authority and drama into the silhouette. Then we see the plastron and ruffle trims increasing by 85%, which is reinforcing this Baroque touch. So here blouses and dresses featuring scallop edges and pleats, and the construction balances rigor and embellishment. And then finally, for bottoms, we see how vintage bloomers are up to 42%. And this is bringing either an intimate layer to this narrative, but also reworking codes of lingerie into more statement piece, which is mixing femininity and subversive nostalgia. And when we move to the accessories, we see how in this slide we have Baroque opulence and sculptural precision spread through the two key pieces. So we have the bag, which is a hardshell clutch, which is up to more than 100%, and this is embodying a sense of luxury armor, if we could say. So it's compact, it's glossy, rigid. And then we have the Baroque flat pump, which as well, even if it's an early sign, but it's resonating, it brings the same sense of crafted and sculptural formality to footwear as we see in the bag. But so much about accessories, and let's see the AI generations with Maria Giulia.
Yeah, so Napoleon's Muse shift us into this more powerful register, which is romantic yet commanding. So think tailored vest or structured coats and gold trim details that convey confidence and redefinement, immediately elevating basic outfits. And so commercially, this direction really works perfectly for outwear, tailored separates, but also for statement outfit looks. It captured the feeling of this empowered femininity, which is strong and sensual. So let's introduce now the last one to you.
Thank you so much. So our final mood, Desert Rider, closes this SS26, glimpse into the stories with a fusion of bohemia and rock styles. It combines the biker spirit with nomadic flair. So biker elements have been increasing by 28% that we highlighted here in our data. So following the return of the boho chic throughout the previous seasons, this trend is one that revisits the codes of bohemia, but in a more 2000-ish, boho brigade kind of way. It was definitely, super relevant across a set of designers like Etro Balma, Isabelle Marant, Roberto Cavalli, and R13. So the collections here fused nomadic craft with biker glamour. We saw pieces like the gauzy kaftan, balloon pants that you see later, etc., all, mix and match these elements of something fluid and bohemian with a bit more sharper elements that's introduced this more rebellious biker universe here. So textures are also driving a bit of this rougher narratives with leathers and suedes, and features like the fringe or metallic beads add a little bit more femininity and softness. This is a trend that evokes both nomadic spirits and warrior interpretation. It feels super independent and assertive. It's about grounding fashion back in authenticity, and therefore definitely the classics like bohemia and rebellious codes are crucial. And thinking about summer, this can be very well for transitional drops, but also for the festival seasons. And now maybe Simone on the key pieces.
Thank you, Julia. So here we have, again, the balloon shape, but in the pants. So we have the Aran pants, which is rising by more than 300%, and this is embodying this shift. It's exaggerating volumes, and it's also challenging the logic of practicality and city wear. So it's a very anti-urban product. And while we see also in top wear, we don't have elegant femininity, but more structured, asymmetric, more free and rebellious constructions, which is turning sensuality into more conceptual concept. Sorry for the repetition. And then finally, we have the safari bomber, which is also growing up to 200%, and is reinterpreting functionality through a more nomadic lens. So it's not the preppy bomber, but it's more utilitarian, layered, and made for movement and transition rather than permanence. And we can see a same vibe for the accessories in the next slide. So we have a fringe shoulder bag, which is a stable trend and is carrying this sense of crafted imperfection, but also, as I mentioned before, of movement, of non-persistency. And at the same time, the shoe, it's called nomadic booty, and it's up to 30% for this exact reason, because it's symbolic of this new aesthetic, a bit post-capitalist and flexible, grounded in new materials, which is rejecting city routine. But let's see how we finalize the trend with Maria Giulia.
Yes. So Desert Rider is like a trend that really captured the modern boho revival, as we said. So it's nomadic, tactile, and cool. And it's all about earthy tones, raw fabrics, layered silhouettes, as you can see here, and which are contrasting with leather boots or fringed oversized jackets. So imagine some washed palettes, fluid dresses, or slouchy trousers, which are paired with artisanal belts, for example. So these looks merge the resort ease with this urban practicality and a kind of rebellion. So it's a kind of boho evolved with a refined edge that feels authentic, grounded, and globally relevant.
Thank you so much, Maria Julia. So we have 5 minutes left, and I want to come to a quick close of today's Trendstorming. First of all, I'm so happy that you've all been here. And of course, there's way more, and you can go so much deeper. If you want to have the full SS26 show analysis, where we drill down every, category, from ready to wear and accessory to its must-haves, and we provide even more trend directions. Or if you want to have some more customized data reports, they are all available through the Livetrend platform. And of course, what you've seen today is just a snapshot of our 360-degree analysis. There's always new information, new signals appear each week, and we are capturing them and visualizing them in real time on the platform, in the dashboards, and on the feed. But surely you can also scan the QR code here on the right side to access the download for the full reports. On the next slide, I want to just make sure that you stay connected with Livetrend. So please subscribe to our newsletter if you want to get a little bit of a sneak preview. Stay tuned about our events, what's happening, where you can see us maybe in reality if we come to your city, and also what has recently been updated on your trends feeds, etc., what new functionalities there are, and get some exclusive invitations, etc. Then we also have our social media, where we launch or drop a lot of trend pills that recap what we are working on at Livetrend in a quick glance. So make sure to follow us there as well. And for any other questions or requests for a demo, now on the next slide, make sure to contact us directly. We have Sophie, who is responsible for our partnerships, and then of course Barbara, the co-founder of Livetrend and the CEO of the company, that is happy to respond to any personal requests regarding our platform or the report and this analysis. So thank you for joining us today. Unfortunately, we just have 3 minutes left. I saw there was 1 or 2 questions throughout the webinar, but if you have any, other questions, feel free to leave us your email address and the question so we can get back to you, but come to a close. I see there, maybe Lucy, you have...
Yes, there is a question from Paola, who is wondering if it's possible to combine the runway to reality feature with our bestsellers, and like if the process is automated.
So it's definitely possible to get a personalized runway to reality or trend to reality, let's say, set up from us at Livetrend. We're currently in communication with some new other interesting partners in order to exactly make it automated. For the moment, you can just get it on request, but we're happy to, keep you posted on this new collaboration in order to also automatize the process. So much about that. So please subscribe to newsletter, stay tuned, reach out, and otherwise, it was such a great pleasure to be here with the team, to